I'm Brandon Miller, and you are listening to Coach. This weekly series dives deep into the world of Clifton strengths and how they impact your daily life. Hear from certified strengths coaches on the ins and outs, quirks, and characteristics of all 34 strengths and 4 domains and how they play out in real life. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Season 2, Coach to Coach. I am here with Katie Swearingen, and we have a fun history together. We've done some work together learning strengths. I think as far back as 2016, if I recall. Is that about right, Katie?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, back in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we were tasked with bringing strengths into a large organization. We met in a leadership meeting. And then we decided we had to get it past the big boss, and then off we went. The whole team of your developers were learning strengths and learning how to apply strengths. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
And so from that time, you've gone on to do big, awesome things. You want to tell the listeners what you're up to and the work that you're doing and how strengths is involved in some of your journey to the state.
Yes, I'd love to. So currently I'm working at a cancer center in Arkansas. It's called CARTI. I serve as organizational development advisor, and I get to take care of those who take care of others, which is such an honor. I have worked in healthcare for, decades now. And it's just such an honor to be able to, everything from onboarding to leadership development to engagement to wellness, just really helping our team members feel like they want to come to work, they feel taken care of at work, that it's actually a great thing for their life.
In your journey, how have you found the connection between strengths and someone knowing their strengths, working their strengths, and then employee engagement well-being? What are some of those connections you've made over the years?
I think just feeling like you know what you do best and you can show up doing what you do best. I feel like really diving into strengths builds confidence, because strengths is, how we show up naturally. But if we don't really dig into what that means, we may not have the confidence. We may kind of say, well, I'm not sure if that's a real strength or if it's a weakness. But when we dive into it and understand it more and how it shows up naturally, it builds our confidence. And so we're able to do what we do best. And that, of course, benefits the whole community.
That's great. Yeah, the connection between knowing me and I'm able to tell you, here are the things that over my lifespan to this point that I know that this is where you get the most from me. And if I can equally tell you, here are the things that I can do, but they aren't the best of me. I'm like, so here's my best and here's where it's not. And these 34 terms that we're going through in Season 2 with you expert coaches coming on, talking to us. That is the essence of this season. And so, Katie, we find ourselves at adaptability today. And I want to just hand over the reins for a bit. And if you could take our listeners through a journey into the mind of adaptability and the modality and how it works, and perhaps just your own experience discovering what this is like for you, and then perhaps as you've met others or seen it within a team context, helped other people understand it so they can see the value. Love to hear it. So take us away into the world of adaptability.
All right, so I'm going to go back to 2016 when we first met. And I was really looking at everything from a strengths perspective. So it was pretty fascinating. I would watch movies and try to figure out the strengths of the main characters. I was, looking at kind of my own journey, my own life, and where these showed up. So it was kind of funny because I unlocked all 34, which, there's a risk in that. And I noticed that my number 34 was focus. And that was all about goal setting. And so I said, well, I know how to goal set. I'm going to show the universe that I know how to set goals. Although naturally I don't really set goals. So anyway, that year I decided to set a goal, and this is going to be about a fitness journey, but I promise it's relevant to the professional world. But you'll appreciate this because I think you've been on your own fitness journey too. So I set a goal of doing a triathlon. And I said, I'm going to measure it. I'm going to track progress. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to get a baseline. I'm going to, set milestones, and I am going to show the world that I can set goals. So anyway, I trained for about 12 weeks, which is pretty typical for a triathlon. It is a swim, bike, run event in that order. Open water swim. So I am excited the morning of. I am ready to go. I have got energy. I have been working on this. And I get in the water and I swim the first 50 yards of a 425-yard swim. And I hit a brick wall. I am in the middle of the lake. And so all of a sudden, I said, what are my options? And my adaptability kicked in immediately. So adaptability is all about, in the moment, how are you going to respond? So when I was in the middle of the lake, without a life preserver, and I had trained for 12 weeks on this, I said, what are my options? So there are kayakers out in the lake watching the triathletes. And I have, 3 out of my top 5 talent themes are in the relationship domain. So what do? I make friends with the kayakers. And they said, do you want to hold on to my boat? And I said, I'm not holding on to your boat. That is not one of my options that I'm going to choose in this moment because I've trained for this. And I said, can I do the backstroke? And they said, you can do whatever stroke you want. So here I am in the moment deciding to do the backstroke that I have never practiced before. I had not trained for the backstroke, but here I am doing the backstroke just so I can move forward. So I look back on that experience and say, as much as I tried to have focus and be a goal setter, in the moment, what moved me forward was really my adaptability. In the moment, the choices and the options that I had. And it was it had to be a quick decision. But in the moment is where I found my strength to make that choice.
I often hear the word spontaneity, the ability to be spontaneous, to make quick course corrections, comfortable with plans changing seemingly, without any notice. And so your example there, that story, absolutely. I'm in a moment. I got to choose options. You knew which ones you weren't going to take. So you weren't going to take the free pass because you're going to finish this darn thing. You spent 12 weeks getting ready for, and then you chose a path. So talk to us about this, the adaptable, right? This ability to change, to adjust, to maneuver seemingly effortlessly. It's almost as though change is invited, even though I don't think that's what you intended when you got in the water that day. But it's almost welcome because it presents a new path.
Yes. So, I think when we just look at our work world, there are changes all the time. And so, we can kind of throw around adaptability, flexibility, that kind of thing. But I think for the adaptability talent theme, it is looking at that moment to say, what options do I have right now? And how can I respond best? I think what really drives me in adaptability is that I don't want to waste my time going down a path that is not going to yield good results. So when I look at the options in the moment, I'm really trying to pick out what might be the best option to move forward. And I don't feel limited by having to stay a certain course when I know that there are a lot of different roads I can take. One example of where this has shown up is, technology can be a thing sometimes. And I was getting ready to do a full day training with leaders, had a full class waiting for me at 8:30 on a Monday morning. And I walk in and we have no power. We have no AV. I have no PowerPoint slides that I can pull up. And in that moment, I said, okay, what are my options? I can cancel the class. I really don't want to cancel the class. These leaders have, invested their day, the day of their schedule, to be with me. Can I just move through the content? Is that an option without having AV, without having technology? Absolutely. This content was all about people leading. So I could do it without technology. So we spent half of the full day class or the whole morning without technology AV. I don't even think we had lights. Luckily, we were in a room where there were windows, and we just talked through the content, and it was wonderful because we connected with each other. We shared experiences with each other. They got the content that they needed. I had taught it enough that I actually knew it without, needing the help of slides. And so we were able to stay the course. We were able to get the outcome that we intended to get, just go in a different route. And so I think, I feel like with adaptability, it has given me freedom and permission to move forward on a route that is best for that moment.
That's right. I've heard it said that this strength is like the calm in the storm, because when change comes, change is inevitable. And our friends with high adaptability, you embrace change as it's just going to happen. So when you come in and there's no power and it's okay, what are my options? And it seems that the adaptability strength moves very quickly through what's in front of them. Here's what I see, and why it seems to fit so well in relationship is that you can bring us with you. You help us know, I got this. It's okay, everyone. Watch how I adjust and figure out those options. And it seems to happen very quick, right? So when you're presented with no power, people in front of me, I got to teach a class, those options seem to come 1, 2, 3, and sort, select, boom, go to option 2, or everybody sit down, we're doing this without power. Is that how that works for you?
Yeah, but it's what's important rises to the top. It's filtering through all of the unnecessary things and looking at what is most important here. And let's focus on that and let's move forward with that. And I think that's such a value add for this talent theme. I really enjoy studying mindfulness, and it's kind of similar in that you're trying to filter out what is distracting you and really focus in on what is most important. And let's figure out how to do that in the moment.
That's great. So tell us, Katie, with this, and y'all, if you want to talk to Katie, she loves a good conversation on LinkedIn, right, Katie? So her company, CARTI, CARTI, that she works with and works for, and doing great work there, Katie. Thank you. I know with those of us who have been close to or experienced a journey through the illness that cancer can bring in all its many facets, having those people who care, who take a look out and taking care of those people is something that I'm sure has some great rewards to that. But if you're interested in talking to Katie about best practices, ways that you could grow as a coach, or you want to know more about this one, LinkedIn is where you can find Katie Swearingen. And she's out of Little Rock still, correct? Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Love that town. And if you ever want to know what to do in Little Rock, you talk to Katie, because she'll tell you how to get around and find some cool spots. I think you called yourself the unofficial ambassador of the city, right? You tell us all where to go.
Absolutely. Yes, everyone needs to come and visit Little Rock, Arkansas. It's amazing. I can tell you where to eat, maybe find some karaoke.
That's right. Had a good time down there. So Katie, when we think about this strength, the ability to adjust in moments, sometimes others might feel a little unsettled by that. They get a little unsettled by the seemingly flexibility, but maybe to them it's, well, why did we make a plan if we're just going to flex from it? Why did we do this if we're just going to move on? And so sometimes with adaptability, when we're coaching it or sharing with it, we have to encourage, hey, it's okay also to stick with a plan. It's okay also to go with what we did, because we don't want to overflex this, because then it's hard to follow. Then it's hard to do. And so I'm curious, in your own journey with this, or perhaps even working with others, how you've helped develop that strength so that it gets its best use, but also is aware of where it might start to wander in places that aren't as helpful.
Yeah. I do a lot of emerging leader coaching, and oftentimes they'll come in with scenarios or situations that they're currently in, and they just, want some advice on what to do. And at that point, I really try to explore the options that they have in front of them. And I like for them to think through best case scenario, worst case scenario, stuff in between, and kind of go down that path of trying to predict as much as possible what they can do in that situation, but also always bringing up the variable of there is going to be another person in that flow chart that you're not going to be able to predict. So when you go, and a lot of it is relational or conversational. And so when an emerging leader or a leader, or even an individual contributor is going into maybe a conflict conversation with someone, I try to get them to think about, okay, go down the path of what you can say, what you can have control over, the options that you have, the choices that you can make in that situation. But always know that there is going to be that variable that is unknown because you don't know how the other person is going to respond. I think with the adaptability talent theme, that's almost motivating to me, knowing that there is that unknown variable and knowing that the adaptability strength can be strong in a situation like that. I mean, adaptability, people with adaptability can be really strong in that situation where they don't know how the other person is going to respond. But if they have explored their options for best case scenario, worst case scenario, everything in between, they feel prepared for that. And when we think about a plan, you can have a great plan. And you can, again, think about what outcome you want. But there are different paths to that outcome. I mean, obviously, in my triathlon, a backstroke was a path to get out of the lake that I had not thought of before until that moment of survival. But, when we think back at the last, 4 or 5 years that we've had, and in the pandemic, when everything had to change, we had to figure out different ways of doing things. We had to look at, what are our options? Sure, we have a plan. Many of us make 5-year plans, 10-year plans. Organizations, have strategic plans. But in that moment, when there were certain things that were not available to us and we had to be creative, I bet the folks with adaptability really felt strong in that situation. And like they had something to offer.
I would say during a season as we went through, it was adaptability's time to shine, because that realm of the unknown seems to be a place where adaptability can come real strong, because in that space, they take it as it comes. Take it as it comes. I remember an example given in the past of a career that someone with high adaptability might thrive in, and had to do working in an emergency room type setting or a first responder type setting, where each day you go to work, you cannot predict how this is going to go. You don't know what you're going to face. You don't know what's coming. And adaptable seem to thrive in that sort of environment where the change is part of it. Where I have found others who take a role where it's more routine and it's structure and it's consistent, they seem to have their shine fade just a bit, that it kind of brings them down. And if they're not finding that outlet for adaptability in other spots, that can really start to weigh into what we talked about at the start of the program today, their engagement and their well-being. So as you're working with leaders emerging with adaptability, what are some ways that you might coach them on, here's how you really can maximize the strength, but here's also ways that you might want to find expression here where you're going to want to build on this one, because it calls to us, right? All of our strengths call to us to move in a direction. And this one has a very clear call that it can bring.
Yes. When it comes to engagement, I work with a lot of the leaders on engagement action plans. And there are a lot of leaders who that strategic planning is super important to them. And, that perseverance on one plan is important. But I always give them permission. If you are working an action plan and you get 2 months in and your team members say, this isn't working, I am giving you permission to pivot. Please pivot. Use that flexibility, that creativity, have your team use that flexibility and creativity to do something different, because I don't want them to continue on an action plan that is not going to work for their team or their team is not excited about. So if they're moving through and after a month, 2 months, 3 months, they say, no. And I don't want them to think that that means they're not accomplishing their goal, because again, the big picture goal is to build engagement. How we get there can look different in different timelines. So there are a lot of different routes that you could take to get to that overall engagement. And so if they're moving through the lake and they figure out they have to do something different, they've got to be willing to pivot. And so I always give them permission to do that. I actually ask them to do that.
That's good. Yeah, I find with this strength, when you lead someone with high adaptability, and several of my adult children are high in adaptability, and that's created such interesting conversations around how they make their plans, how they think about, everything from major purchases to even my son and his wife are both high adaptability, and just even how they chose to get married and how they chose to buy their house, and now with their kids and decisions they make. And, one trying to follow them would seem like this just seems like organized chaos. Like there is no rhyme or reason. And yet it works for them. It works so well. The variety, it enhances their relationship, where others might go, oh, this change seems almost like chaos. No, it's controlled. It's measured. It's not just for the sake of change. And so seems to be with this particular strength, I have found that it does add a little spice to life, right? It does bring a little wink to like, yeah, no, we got you though. Like, come on, it'll all be fine. So, Katie, I imagine you're one heck of a plan. Like, let's go do a thing, with the family or with the group. But then you might just, for the sake of just, let's just mix it up. Is that something that you might enjoy, whether it's a party setting or a outing? Is that something you, with your adaptability, get to play into?
Oh, yes. Well, it's so funny because, when I go on vacation, sometimes I'll go to these resorts where they have newsletters that they print every day. And I remember when I first went to a resort and they said, we will deliver the newsletter every day. And I said, I am on vacation. I don't need a newsletter. I'm just going to wing it. Well, then by day 2, I said, where's my newsletter? And it was because it gave me options. It gave me, okay, here is my day and here is my option if I want to take a group bike ride, if I want to go out and do water aerobics, if I want to do paddleboard yoga. Here are my options. And what do I feel like today? What's going to, float my boat today? And that was really enjoyable to me. That is where I kind of maximized my vacation time. So again, planning is not a bad thing. Planning is wonderful. But I think what we have to keep in mind is, what's that end goal of the big picture? What's the big picture? Okay, on vacation, I want to have fun. There are different routes to do that. And so in the moment, and my number one is futuristic. And so when I think about futuristic and adaptability, how does that work? In the moment, the decisions I make create my future. My adaptability, and I see this when you're talking about your kids too, and how it kind of seems like organized chaos. There is meaning in that moment as they are making decisions, and that creates their future, that creates relationships, that creates outcomes. But it's the power of making that decision in the moment.
That's great, Katie. Thank you. Listeners, you've heard from Katie Swearingen today. If you would like to find her on LinkedIn, she'd love to discuss best practices with you. If you want a resource to learn more about adaptability, we have a contributions and needs analysis of all 34 strengths. It's in our How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, and you can reach us at brandon@34strong.com, and we'd be happy to send that out to you so you can learn more about adaptability and the other strengths associated, but even a little activity called Best of Me and how you might be a great team member to others and them to you. Katie, any last parting shots on adaptability? If someone wants to develop it, grow it, understand it, anything that we might have left off the table that we could add before we wrap up?
I think, just realizing the confidence that comes with being able to respond in the moment. You may not have all the answers to respond, but I think if your adaptability can bring those resources in, bring those options in, and help other people explore that, I think that you're adding value to your community.
Awesome. All right. Well, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Another episode of Coach to Coach. This was Adaptability. Katie, thank you so much, and enjoy your time there at CARTI and in Little Rock. And we'll talk to you all next time.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Strengths Whisperer Coach to Coach. Please feel free to reach out to Brandon to partner with 34 Strong for collaboration opportunities to serve your employees or clients together. If you are a strengths coach, lead a strengths-based team, or are a fan of strength, we invite you to receive our complimentary resource, How to Be a Good Teammate to Me, Understanding My Contributions and Needs. Email Brandon_Miller at 34strong.com to connect, and he will gladly share this resource that will continue to unlock the power of strength.